We'll give it just one more second to make sure that folks are in and settled. All right, Courtney, how do you feel? You about ready to get started? All right, wonderful. Let's go ahead and begin then so we can give our full time to this excellent conversation. So, hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for our final session of the second day of the Calm Conference. My name is Britt, and I will be moderating this session. And I am so excited today to welcome Courtney Drysdale, who will be presenting Mama Said There'd Be Days Like This, supporting librarian parents and caregivers. Before we get started, just a couple of logistics. The session is being recorded and captions are available during this session by clicking on the live closed captioning button, as well as the links that are being shared in the chat. And thank you so much to Joseph for providing this service. If you have any questions for Courtney, please include those in the Q&A available at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and then use the chat for more general comments, resource sharing, and other kinds of feedback and information you'd like to share to engage in the session. Rebecca is our tech monitor for today and will be monitoring the chat for any questions or comments. And we'll also be including some of the other links related to today's session. So if you have any questions, if you have any resources, again, please do just share those. And then finally, we do have our code of conduct, which we've provided to make sure that we have a safe and respectful experience for everyone here through Calm. And our code of conduct on-call volunteer today is Erica. So if you have any questions or need to get in touch with her, you can identify her through the Calm COC tag at the beginning of her display name. So from there, I will go ahead and turn it over to Courtney. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, everyone. Appreciate you joining. I'm going to drop the link for the presentation slides in the chat if you'd like it. So we'll start. Mama said there'd be days like this. So thank you for coming and being interested in this topic. So I'm Courtney Drysdale. I use she, her pronouns. When I did this research, I was a research and instruction librarian and associate professor at Regis University, which is a private Jesuit university in Denver. I have since changed positions, and now I am a data librarian at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. It's one of the national labs. I'm still here in the Denver area. And for this presentation, another really relevant information about me is that I'm a mom of two. They are 7.5 and 5. And I had both of them during my time at Regis. I was at Regis for 8 years, had both kids while I was there. So that really informed this project. And then just some legal stuff. This research was during my time at Regis, but I don't speak on behalf of the university. And I do work for a national lab, so the views expressed in this do not necessarily represent the views of the DOE or the US government. So we'll get started just talking about our time together today. So first we'll talk a little bit about the research project and the results. So the background of why I decided to do this project, the literature that informed it, the actual survey tool that I used, and then we'll go through some of the results. There were both multiple answer questions, open-ended, And then we'll talk a little bit about how you might apply this information at your institution. After that, we'll go into a time of sharing. This will be done through a Jamboard, so it's all anonymous. You're able to just add stickies onto it for sharing your own experiences, or if you're not a parent or caregiver, this is also a great place to ask questions and be able to know kind of how you'd be able to support. All right, so we'll jump right into project background. So why this project? This picture is me and my daughter in 2019. This was halfway through my second unpaid parental leave at my institution. And I started thinking about what could be better. So I started thinking through why are experiencing parental leave, parenting, and caregiving, why was it so hard when this is such a universal experience, especially in a feminized profession like librarianship? There are a lot of women and a lot of people that are going to be parents or caregivers of some type. All of us will probably be caregivers of someone at some point in our life, whether or not we're a parent. And is there anything we can do to make it feel better, even if we can't change official policy? Because I was really coming up against a lot of like, well, that's not in our policy. And I was like, great, I'm still struggling. I need some support. So what could we do? And then also, if we are going to advocate for policy change, what should we put our efforts into for advocacy? What would be the most helpful for people? So given those questions I was having about my own experience and also seeing colleagues and friends go through experiences, that I was thinking, how can I take some of my research time as an academic librarian to be able to make things better? So the final research question I defined was, which policies help academic librarian mothers feel supported before, during, and after parental leave? And I have gotten questions in the past about why just mothers? Why just academic librarian mothers? So I picked this as a very specific population just to really keep that narrow to be able to figure out those experiences. So though this study was done on a very specific population, these are person-centered policies that can be really helpful for anyone, whether or not they're a parent, a caregiver, or anyone else in our library, honestly, just having that space to have both your work and your regular life. So of course, I went to the literature first and did a lit search. I did searches for different areas. So first, specifically parental leave in academic libraries. There are a few things on that. Parental leave in higher education in general, since it is a different type of work than and other types of libraries or other types of organizations. Then I looked at parental leave in general. And then also looked into, because I was looking at mothers specifically, librarianship and motherhood. There were some great articles that came up when I looked for that. Some really great kind of more based on like the experience of being a mother as an academic librarian. So I did include a literature list link for you if you want to be able to see. I mean, we're a bunch of librarians, so you might want to see that. So that's linked in the chat. So that kind of informed the way I put the study together. So the way that I performed the study was I sent out a survey looking for people in this population to share their experiences and what was most helpful for them. So I do have a link to the survey as well if you want to see the whole survey questions. I won't go through all of them here. But in general, it was distributed in February 2022. This was actually, I was faculty at Regis, and so I was fortunate enough to get a sabbatical leave. So I did this during my sabbatical. So I sent it in February 2022. I distributed it on Twitter, back when Twitter was a usable website. So I put it out there and actually used different links so I could see where they were coming from. More than half came from posting it on Twitter, and a lot of people shared it there. There was a great academic library community there. And then I also shared it on several academic library listservs and got 122 responses sending it that way. So I ended up with 253 respondents and 227 eligible responses. So to be eligible for the survey, you had to be an academic librarian at the time your child was born or joined your family, have that child born or joined your family from 2011 to 2021. So in the last 10 years of when this was done. And then had to be in the United States. So I wanted to look at the US, especially given that we don't have paid parental leave as a federal policy. And all other developed nations do. So it had 3 qualifying questions, like I discussed, 5 multiple answer questions where they shared what policies they had access to, some of their experiences, and then 4 open-ended questions where people could really share their experiences. Found a lot of value from those. And then 6 demographics questions. Wanted to see if there were differences between different types of universities and colleges to see if there's any differences regionally or any differences among the other one was looking at faculty status. So whether librarians were considered faculty, staff, university staff, all the different ways that librarians can be at an institution. So I wanted to look and see if there were any differences there. What we did is went through the results. So I did this through Qualtrics. And I'm going to show you some of the questions. I will acknowledge, I know these can be kind of small on a screen. There's not a great way to export them in Qualtrics. So I do have these slides shared if you want to be able to look at it a bit bigger. So this was Q4, the first 3 questions being qualifying questions. So this was the first actual question. So I asked people, which of the following formal policies were available to you when your child or children was born? Choose all that apply. I do want to stop and pause here because I wrote in this question when your child was born. And there are some other questions later that have changed to when your child joined your family. I intended to change them all to when your child joined your family, so as to be inclusive of families that had a parent give birth or a child join their family in another way through adoption or foster care or kinship, other ways that children joined families. So I did have that pointed out to some participants through the study and wanted to acknowledge that here, that this was a mistake and didn't mean to put on all of these instead of born when the child joined the family, so that it includes all types of families. So you can see here, people could pick as many as apply to them. So the most common formal policies that people had available to them was FMLA, that is a federal job protection. We also had vacation leave and sick leave, which most people have access to. A higher number than I expected, honestly, had paid parental leave from their institution, so about 100. 83 had short-term disability insurance, and then others for unpaid leave, flexible schedule, remote work, paid family leave through a state program. I know there's been more states that have instituted family leave since the study was performed, Colorado being one of those, just started it this year. So after they answered this question, their answers would carry forward to the next question, where they could rank how helpful that policy was to them as a new parent. So you can see this is a lot of numbers as well. Again, these are available in the slides if you want to take a closer look. But the most people answered about FMLA, but it was kind of moderately helpful across the board. Same with vacation leave. People that did have access to paid parental leave from their institution, you can see answered more than others that it was extremely helpful. And you can also see flexible scheduling was very helpful for people, and the others were kind of across the board, helpful for some and not as helpful for others. All right, the next question that I wanted to highlight was the informal policies and practices. So these I chose based on things in my own experience, things my colleagues had experienced, and then I also asked a group of working parents in like a larger online group different things like informal policies that they had experienced to give me some more ideas. I wanted to be able to make this choices instead of open-ended so that it'd be a little easier to chunk like this. So these were the ones they had available to them, not necessarily that they happened. So we had a celebration, so maybe a baby shower, a card, welcome back coffee, things like that. Lactation is a big deal. So time for lactation needs, if applicable. It's not something that everyone does or chooses to do. Space for lactation needs, flexible scheduling, flex time for appointments, a preferable schedule. So something like no weekends, no evenings, starting your workday later, things like that. Change in duties was another one. So maybe less travel, fewer classes or shifts. Something else helpful that could be as varies. And then reduce hours. And then just a few people had that they could bring their new baby to work. I worked for a company before that had that policy. It was not in place at Regis, but that was very nice. So then again, these carried forward to say how helpful these were or not for people. So you can see here, I always look at these very helpful and extremely helpful percentages, and the higher they are there, kind of the better the policy was for them or practice. So time for lactation needs was really very, very helpful for people. I think that goes a lot into being able to do it as needed because everyone's body is different, everyone's child is different. People also found the space for lactation needs very helpful. There was also just a few people were able to reduce their hours down here, but it was extremely helpful to those folks that could. Preferable schedule was also really helpful for folks. I know that's something in my experience that was really helpful. I had a couple of my colleagues go to our department head and say, hey, maybe Courtney shouldn't have to work late into the evening when she's a million weeks pregnant. And that was super helpful of them to help me out with that. You can also see that like a celebration for you or your child, like the baby shower, was across the board available to a lot of people, but people didn't find it to be extremely helpful. So that's more of like a nice to have, but not something that makes the most impact. It's more the flexibility and the lactation, if that applies to the person, that was helpful for them. And now we'll move over to the open-ended questions. So these were really interesting. I coded these into categories and grouped them using a web service called Taget. I recommend it. It's awesome, super helpful, really easy way to be able to look at themes. I did an inductive coding process where I read through the responses and then defined my categories and then put them in groups. And then I made tables with numbers from each category. Responses could fit into more than one category, so the numbers don't add up to the number of responses. And then quotes were selected to represent some of the categories, either categories that showed up more or really unique things that maybe I wasn't expecting as part of the scope here. And then I do have a link to selected quotes. So I'm not going to go over them specifically in this presentation, just for the sake of time. But they're very, very interesting. And I feel like I was very honored that people would share their experiences. And so I want to make sure that some of their words are represented exactly as they wrote them. So as far as looking at the open-ended, the first one that I asked was thinking about all the policies available to you when your child or children joined your family. So I got the wording right on this one. What was most helpful to you? And two things rose to the top. 48 people mentioned paid parental leave, or 48 mentions of a flexible schedule. So that says a lot to me of the things that are both helpful for folks and also the things that we should advocate for. They also said that vacation and sick leave was helpful. Of course, that's helpful for being paid, especially if you only have access to FMLA, so that you're not having to take as much unpaid time. People also pointed out the lactation space and lactation time over here. They also referenced remote work. Since this was in 2022, we were still pretty, well, we were still in the pandemic, pretty fresh from that experience. Um, and so people mentioned that they didn't know if they would have had remote work opportunities if not for the COVID-19 pandemic that we were navigating and still are. They also mentioned FMLA, and then a fewer references to supportive colleagues, the amount of leave time they had, and then other lesser mentioned things down here, but felt like I wanted to highlight. So after that, I asked, were there any barriers to using these formal and informal policies at your institution? Just wondering if people aren't using them, why not? Or if it was a more difficult experience. I will say reading through, especially the open-ended, this is a really difficult and vulnerable time for people. And any barriers, whereas like usually paperwork might not be a big deal, during a time of stress and vulnerability, it really, really can feel much more difficult to be able to navigate bureaucracy or of knowing things. So 32 people said they had no barriers, which I thought was wonderful. 30 people pointed out knowledge of policies, and I will speak to that as my experience as well. I just didn't know what the policies were until I needed them. And then again, I was stressed about this big change in my life, even though it was, it's a big change, no matter if you're excited about it or not. It's a big change becoming a parent. People pointed out their lactation space was lacking. That was a common thing. Another thing that people pointed out was that they had to exhaust their leave balances. If you haven't been through this yourself, a lot of institutions require you to use all of your vacation and all of your sick leave, and then perhaps take unpaid time as well if you don't have any paid leave left, or paid parental leave. So then you come back with no leave balances from with a tiny human that goes to the doctor a lot and needs to go to the, get sick as soon as they start daycare. I see someone in the chat like, yes, what are you supposed to do when the baby gets sick? Because it is, and then you're going to get sick, and then repeat indefinitely. So yeah, that one was one that I was really glad people pointed out. That was a really big sticking point for me. People also pointed out human resources difficulties and paperwork, which is, again, stressful to be dealing with when you're already dealing with a big change. There were also people that pointed out that there were more subjective informal policies. So that's something to be aware of when you're looking at informal, like, is this fair to everyone? And is this not just fair, but is this equitable? Because people have different situations and need different things, and giving everyone the exact same thing just because that's the rule may or may not actually be the best thing for that person. So really looking at it on a person by person basis. Looking at the institutional culture, people pointed out that time for lactation needs, that they didn't qualify for the leave policy, and money. I hear that a lot of people take unpaid leave. I think about half of my leave was unpaid. It's a huge struggle for people that you are coming back and you've had this big life change, and you're also having to look at not getting a paycheck. There's some important barriers to be aware of as you're looking at, like, how can we support people? How can we really help them? Looking at how can we get around these things? The next thing I asked people was not just what they experienced, but what support do they wish they had had related to preparing for a new baby, being away from work, or returning to work after leave. So the top one was paid leave. It comes up again and again. What support people wish they had is paid leave. And I will echo that in my own experience. Paid leave would have been life-changing. I'm grateful Colorado now has paid leave for family medical leave, but it didn't exist at the time. Remote work was also brought up as something they wish they had had. More time off, flexible schedule. Childcare support was one that I didn't expect to see brought up, but it was in there, of people really struggling to find childcare. and wishing that they had both monetary support and just seeking out how to find childcare, especially for an infant. People also brought up wishing they had part-time options for when they came back. So maybe kind of coming back part-time and then ramping up a little bit. The way that FMLA works, you usually have to use it all at once instead of it's either all at once or it's like spread out. I can't remember what the word for it is. But being able to do like a part-time option when you're coming back would have been helpful for people. Lactation space got brought up again. Better knowledge of intermittent leave. Thank you. I knew someone would know. So yeah, you usually have to use like all in one or intermittently. So people were wishing that they could kind of mix and match. And then better knowledge of policies and consistent policies, ability to bring the baby to work. And then just wanted to point out people wished they had had supportive colleagues, understanding supervisor, close parking, reduction in duties, and then pointed out support for foster or adoptive parents. It's super important that this is not just people giving birth to a child. It can also be someone having a child join their family at any age through foster or adoption. All right, so that was a lot of results. So I'm going to briefly talk about ways that I think these can be applied to your institution and ways that I tried to apply them at Regis while I was there. So next steps that I would take given this information is talk to the caregivers at your library about what would be helpful. So as much as welcoming a child to your family and even pregnancy and giving birth is somewhat of a universal experience, it's also very individual. So things that would have been helpful for me and things that were helpful for the people that responded to this, generally, these things will probably be helpful to others. But if you have someone going through this right now, it would be great to talk to them about what would be helpful, especially since this study is based more on people experiencing parental leave. There are also people that are experiencing caregiving of an aging parent or a disabled partner or a sibling. So I think talking to them about what would be helpful and what type of understanding and support that they need is the most crucial. And that requires having a conversation and getting to know each other. Especially as managers, I would hope that people would be able to talk to their direct reports to be able to figure out, like, how can I make your life easier? There are many people in the study that talked about leaving their job because of their negative experience. And we don't have to lose people. We don't have to lose people from our institutions and from our profession because we didn't support them. This is a universal experience, and that people will be caregivers. And it's sometimes by choice and sometimes not. So I think we need to talk to each other, know that this is in the best interest of all of us and the institution and organization to know what would be supportive for them. After talking to them, I would look at first at informal policies and procedures. What can I do for my people without asking or informing anyone? So how can I look at making their life easier that isn't going to require me to fill out, 5 forms and, send it all the way up the chain? I would look at informal things first of like, how can we just make this more human? How can we make this more caregiver friendly? And start there. Next, I would recommend advocating for formal policy. So I worked at an institution that did not have paid parental leave and still doesn't. I tried for 8 years while I was there to get them to institute it. There are a lot of resources out there if you want to advocate for formal policy, a lot of toolkits that can help you do that. And this could be for parental leave or for caregiving leave or any other sort of formal policy that would be supportive for people. And then finally, just speaking to the confusion of the process, document the process for future parents and caregivers, like what their options are, like looking at the differences between using FMLA leave, of using caregiving leave or paid leave, whether you're doing it intermittently, which is common for people that are caregivers for older people. So when you're caring for your parents, it's really common to end up using intermittent leave. Whereas if you're a person that is giving birth, or if your partner has given birth, you may take more of that leave together, or at the same time, I mean. And so document the process for people that are going to experience this in the future, so that when they're going through a stressful time of trying to figure something out, you're able to step in and say, hey, this is what other people did in the past. This is the form you need. This is the process. Here's how we can support you. I think that goes a long way of people feeling like, okay, we've got a plan. We know what we're doing. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're the first person to have ever had a baby or had an aging parent. Like, that's not possibly true. It may have been a while in your institution, but it's not possible that you're the first person this has ever happened to. So being able to go through that process, I think, and even if you yourself have not gone through it, but knowing what the process would be for someone else so that they're not floundering and stressed when it comes time to need that kind of support. All right, so we are moving to a sharing period of time. So really, really loving all the things that y'all are putting in the chat, and I hope you'll share them in here too. I love the idea, let them work from home in the weeks further too. That would have been really nice. So I'm gonna put a link in here for a Jamboard, and yes, Jamboards are going away, thanks Google, but I will export this before it goes away entirely. So here is the Jamboard. I'll jump over there on the screen sharing as well. But this is completely anonymous. You can click on the little sticky note links and then stick sticky notes on these. And it's totally anonymous. This part, obviously this is being recorded, but you do not have to put your name attached to anything if you don't feel comfortable. I know this can be a very vulnerable time for people and sharing their experiences, especially if they weren't super positive. So. All right, I'm gonna click over to the Jamboard. All right, everybody can see that okay? So you can open your own copy of this if you'd like. This is just kind of the first screen, that just the title and everything. So if you click through, thank you for the thumbs up, that you can see it. So you can go through and see, add your own stickies. So if you see over here, if you click on this little sticky note thing, it brings up your sticky note, and you can say, I'm a mom of 2. And then it will put your sticky note on the page. So you can put your responses to these as many as you want. They kind of all go in the same spot, so make sure you kind of move them around. You can answer as many of these as you want or none of them. You can also, there's a blank page at the end if you want to just stick questions here. But I think this is a great way for us to dialogue about experiences and go through other things. So I'm gonna stop talking for a second. Give us maybe like 5 to 10 minutes to add to these. There's, I think, 5 or 6 pages, so make sure you click through at the top. And then I'll go through and see, we'll talk through a little bit of what y'all added. So thank you for participating. I love seeing these already going in. I'm putting some great things in here. I'll give you just a couple more minutes to add to any questions or any of these questions, or if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A or the chat. We'll talk through some maybe responses and then if there's any questions, we can talk about questions too. If anything else you want to share that doesn't fit in any of the categories, feel free to click over to that last page and add stuff there if you want. All right, I feel like we're kind of wrapping up. So I'm going to go back to this first question. So I'll highlight some of these. Feel free to stick stuff in chat if you want to as well. First, I just want to say thank you to being here. If you've experienced caregiving or parental leave, but also I want to especially thank the folks that haven't, that came to this session anyway, because that really means a lot. It means a lot that you care about your people. So thank you for being here. So I see we do have a lot of parents. We also have people that are caregiving for their parents. And I see a few people that also care, mom of 3 kids who go to 3 different schools on 3 different schedules. Yes, solidarity. I just got 2 in 2 schools, and that's enough. So I think we've got people all over the map. It's wonderful. Love that someone brought up dealing with infertility as well. That's not a journey that I've personally been on, but I know that it takes so much time and effort, and that it adds to everything, be having to go through that as well. So thank you for sharing that. Just looking at others, also someone that spent their child spent time in the NICU. So yeah, I feel like there's so many experiences that people have that aren't covered by this catch-all 12 weeks FMLA. And we have to be conscious of all of those things. All right. Yes, and I also see people have cared for older or ill family members. We just never know. We never know what life is going to bring us. All right. Thank you for sharing where you're at. I'm going to skip over to if you've experienced parental leave or caregiving, was your experience overall positive or negative or mixed? So honestly, I'm thrilled to see we have more on the positive side. This is actually a question I wish I had asked in the survey, that if people could kind of give me a big picture, was it positive, negative, or mixed? So thank you for sharing. I love that some of you said it was really positive. I see people in California. I see you with your paid leave. That's so good. So I think knowing that there are places that have better experiences, like we know for people that had a negative or mixed experience, it could be better. So knowing that is part of being able to make things better, knowing that it is possible. Love that we see someone had a 6-month parental leave, and that managers were very supportive, coworkers and supervisors were helpful, generally positive, that was stressful to balance everything. Yep. And then as far as mixed experiences, there was, I see mixed, there was a terrible situation, absolutely tragic that happened and made it hard to lean to the positive parts. HR bureaucracy was the pits. I'm so sorry that was your experience. And I know that sometimes there's not anything that would have made it better, but I hope that if we're doing some things that it would make it better. And then negative, I found out about policies I could have used after the fact. That's the worst. So the goal would definitely be to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else. Make sure that people know what they're able to do, what they're able to access through the institution or through the state. And then I love this one that someone put on here underneath that, the expectations regarding excellence don't take into account caregiving burdens. I think that's such an important thing to do and acknowledge, especially as managers, that people are going to have different levels of productivity and work output depending on different situations, you know, whether they're caregiving or whether they're going through something themselves. So yeah, I'm glad, and thank you for sharing these experiences. I'm glad, I'm happy to see there's more positive than negative. All right, and then from our little group here, in your experience, what was the most helpful policy or practice for you? I love seeing these so that we can take ideas. I see someone had paid leave, a few people had paid leave, being able to work remotely, a private office for pumping, more paid leave, informal flexibility with schedule, remote work. Let's see. Ooh, this is a great idea. HR hosted a panel on tenure and promotion for people who were thinking about becoming parents in the next 5 years. I know 2 years ahead what to expect. So helpful. That's such a good idea. Being able to let people plan ahead. It's, again, it's not as if no one's ever going to do this again. But let's see, I've seen more paid family leave, paid leave, flexible hybrid scheduling, and us having a supervisor taking a person-centered approach in supporting me. I think it makes a huge difference. And then again, some pandemic related, being able to work remotely, which was great. Let's see, paid parental leave. Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad to see it is becoming more common, I think, for places to have paid parental leave, which is wonderful. All right, let's move to the next one. I always find this one interesting. What do you wish people knew, your employers or coworkers knew about your experience with parental leave, parenting, or caregiving? So we'll look through these. Yeah, great point on this top one. I think using sick and vacation time does not equal paid leave. People think just because you're using vacation, it's paid leave, and it is not the same thing. I now don't get to take a vacation because I had to take it to pay for my time as for medical leave. So let's see, as a manager, I wish I was given more grace. I hardly have enough leave and often have to leave work at the last minute. I'm not using my child as an excuse. I think that's so important that people are understanding of everyone's life situations. That I love the don't schedule over my lactation breaks. I always had to put those in mine as well, in my calendar. I see benefits like 410s in the summer are great, but don't work well for those who have to deal with daycare. I think there's not a great understanding of the availability of childcare or you know, external care for people. The tiredness, postpartum depression. Yeah, I really appreciate people pointing out that like even that not everything is a healthy easy experience, that we have to acknowledge that other people have had maybe coming back with different experiences. Let's see, I can't let my partner deal with things. Yes, you know, it shouldn't be impossible. It will take months to get up to speed with everything after being out, and that's okay. Yes, another point, I wish people gave me more grace when returning. And then yeah, accommodations for childcare doesn't equal entitlement or unjust expectations. It's caring about others' situation. Yeah. And then, yes, all the appointments. So lots of appointments, both for babies and for adopted kiddos, no matter their age. So I think knowing that. And appreciate, and we'll read this trigger warning, that sometimes babies and children do die. And so how will you deal with that? We can also, someone pointed out on another page, I don't remember where, but dealing with miscarriage or pregnancy loss. You know, I don't, those aren't well, they're not well dealt with as far as formal policy in most places. So I think that's a really, really important one to think about. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, and let's move to this last one. So how can we advocate for ourselves and others regarding policies, practices, and libraries to support parents and caregivers? Really appreciate y'all's ideas on this one. I see transparency, request and approve more flexible and remote work near the end of pregnancy. That would be so reassuring to know that that's also already in place for when they come back. And being able to look at more of a hybrid remote schedule, be more vocal. Oh, here was the one about leave for miscarriage and pregnancy and fertility treatment. I think that's a really important one that people don't talk about a lot. This was a good point, never linking two together. I'm assuming you mean by with different people in case other things happen. And I love this one, keep policies as broadly applicable as possible. People may not value parental leave, but value other caregiving leaves. I think it's important that we make it more inclusive for all. That's part of why I did this study on a specific population, but really wanted to bring it out to a broader audience because policies that are good for parents are good for other caregivers, are good for all people. And then, yeah, making sure work is humane for everyone. Yep, I love that one. And then also someone talking about don't say you're on parental leave if you aren't. So I think really calling it what it is goes a long way with being able to know, really acknowledge like this, nope, this is unpaid time instead of paid time. I'm just gonna switch to this last page to see if there's anything else. All right, and finding childcare was the most stressful thing about my pregnancy and leave. Yep. And then someone got a call back on an infant room wait list when their kid was 4. That happens all the time. It really shouldn't. And then, yes, the university's daycare being guaranteed or free. That's such, people, why do people think that? It's never going to be free. Or if it is free, wow, good for you. And then someone talking about pregnant women may qualify for short-term disability leave on top of paid family leave. So important to your research. Okay. Thank you for sharing all of your experiences. I hope this was helpful. I'll export this as a PDF to include with the other stuff. And I'm going to go back, jump back into our presentation to kind of wrap up. So that's all I had to share. I know we've just got a few minutes left. I don't think I see any questions in the Q&A, but wanted to see if anybody had any questions to throw out.
Thank you so much for this, Courtney, for both sharing your research and choosing to dive into this really important topic, but also facilitating a space for us to share these experiences and share resources and things with each other, which is great. Are there any questions that folks have for Courtney? You can pop them into the Q&A. I think, Courtney, one thing that I was thinking about while you were going through this is I really appreciated the way that you highlighted how the experience of becoming a caregiver, especially going through the process of becoming a parent, but moving through different stages of needs from your parents or other folks that you might be in a caregiving responsibility for. It's a very individualistic kind of experience. Everybody has unique considerations, but we're also experiencing that within like overlapping layers of systems and structures and daycare availability and state policy, federal policy, these kinds of things. And so I'm just kind of curious, as you're thinking about your research, have you heard from folks whose experience is led them to start individual experiences led them to start bringing in activism or leading other types of work at a broader level, addressing those systems and structures?
Not out of this research, but I have just because I'm interested in this, looked at a few different groups that are doing this type of advocacy work. It's actually on the last slide. So I feel like the most important thing out of this is as far as formal policy, it's advocating for paid leave at the federal level. And there are organizations doing that work. So I would encourage folks to get involved in organizations that align with their values. And so paid leave is what I feel most strongly would make a difference for people. So that's what I would say. That's what I've come out of it with.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. And I know that our closing keynote is focused on this topic as well, which will be exciting.
I was so excited to see that. So I'm thrilled that I got to talk about this today too, and I'm excited to attend that as well.
Yeah. All right, we've got a couple of other questions for folks. One person is asking, did you write a paper on this research, your results?
Great question. I always intended to, but I have not. There's not to say I won't, but I have moved out of academic librarianship into more of a or a company corporate role. So I don't know that I will ever write this up, but if anyone wants to talk about it more, I do still have my Regis email is still active if anyone wants to talk about it.
Thank you. Are there particular policies that you have found that get more pushback from administration?
Sure. I think paid leave is a big one because it costs money. But I think when you are advocating for that, you really have to go on the route of like, how many people is it really impacting? How much more does it cost to turn over that position and rehire someone if someone were to leave the workforce? I think it depends on the culture of your institution as well. Some people really push back on the remote work. So it just depends on kind of the vibe you have at your institution. I know that was difficult with us, is being able to have more of that flexibility, whereas like flexible scheduling was easier, remote work was more difficult. But I think mostly the ones that cost money are the biggest ones that I've seen from people. So.
Okay, thank you for that. I think this is a really great question, maybe for our final question, in terms of, do you have any data or suggestions for best practices related to upward mobility and management roles for caregivers that are specifically interested in those kinds of roles?
Oh, I love that question. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say I don't have anything that comes to mind, but I would suggest looking at some of the literature in the lit review section that I linked at the beginning. There's been some really good studies on kind of the outcomes for people that have children and how that impacts them. So I think looking at some of that research, and I know there's got to be some more since I did this lit review as well, but I would look there at some of the experiences, some of the research that's been done specifically on librarians and the impact of being a parent or caregiver or not. I can't off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember which study that is. I might be able to pull it. Let's see. Yeah, there's like this parenthood, professorship, and librarianship, are they mutually exclusive? Things like, oh yeah, this one, career and or children, do female academic librarians pay a price for motherhood? So that might be some interest, some things about how it impacts people, but I don't have any off the top of my head suggestions for related to that. So I'm sorry.
That's great. Thank you again so much, Courtney. Please join me one more time in thanking Courtney for sharing all of these resources and research and work in this area.
Thanks,
And thank you all for being such wonderful audience members and participants in this conversation and participants in Calm. So just a final note to thank Rebecca, and Erica, and Joseph again for participating and supporting this practice, as well as Courtney for sharing her research, and to all of the Calm team for continuing the conference. Our next session will be tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So we will see you tomorrow. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks so much.